All right, welcome to the second episode of Explain Yourself, the show where we get comic creators on and ask them what the heck is up with some of the things in their books, in the comic market, in the world today. Trung is here with us, most probably famous, we would say, for The Magic Fish, which was finalist for many awards, won many awards. Most recently, Angelica, and the Bear Prince, which came out less than 6 months ago.
In October, yeah.
Right. Maybe lesser known to his audience nowadays as somebody who sort of got internet famous for very sexy drawings of mythical creatures. So we go from,
Sure, yeah.
yeah, that was the first thing we carried by you in the store, and it
Mhm.
sold. It sold well. Not Magic Fish levels, but so that's the first question for Explain Yourself here. Again, welcome. Thank you for coming on. Got Joey here to correct me when I give wrong dates and wrong information. But
How you doing?
let's start with our first question. Sexy satyrs, delightful fawns, frolicking, mostly unclad, the
Mhm.
teen and young adult market. What's that journey like?
I don't know that I've thought that hard about it, honestly. Like, I was just doing whatever was in front of me, and I was like, it's a job, I guess. Not that I'm not passionate about all the things that I'm doing, but I just happen to go wherever there is an opening and wherever my skills are most appropriate. And I think at the time, there was a thirst for, like, we need erotic content for, like, older readers, but there was also this inclination towards like, oh, like we want, like everybody's really stressed, the adult coloring books are doing well, why don't we do one of those? And I was approached with that project and I was like, sure, yeah, I could do that. I am very comfortable drawing a lot of really erotic things for whatever, and I hadn't really done very much at the time yet. Like, I'd done a couple of short things with small presses, and so I was like, it doesn't really matter, I'm just out here having fun. Now I make books for children and teens.
So the second, the teens and young adults, you would say, is more of an artistic inclination. That's more the stories you want to tell. And the other, while again, beautiful and amazing, and like I said, we sold quite a few, um, was more, this is work that's fun to do. Someone's offering you to do it, get paid. That's the journey.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
In that, the Magic Fish was as a personal project. It's something that you
Mhm.
got from the heart and started pitching around to publishers, or how does that get made?
Well, sort of. I think so. I was working, like in a nonprofit in a desk job for about 5 years after I graduated from college. And I could tell that this job wasn't going anywhere. I was passionate about the work, but I was like, well, there's not a lot of room for me to grow here. It's a small organization, and a lot of the leadership and all the roles under them seem to have been filled. So why don't I take a huge swing? Because I was living with my parents at the time and I didn't have to pay rent. They were like, you should save up and do something crazy. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And the big swing that I took was I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to make comics because I have, this real need to tell stories that are important to me. And I originally pitched The Magic Fish to agents as just an anthology of fairy tales, right? I was like, okay, here are the stories that I want to see in comic book form. And I started pitching them around, and it wasn't very successful until I landed my agent, who suggested that I need to make the story more personal to me. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I have to like figure out why these stories are important to me. And then I kind of tugged at that thread and I realized, oh, I'm obsessed with stories that are about living in different worlds and navigating spaces across language barriers. So I kind of just zeroed in on those stories, and the kind of personal part of it came after the fact, which is sort of strange. That framing device story that everyone kind of thinks is the main deal was not the thing that came first.
Despite the fact that it is often considered this deeply personal, coming of age, coming out, self-acceptance, sharing yourself with the world story, that was just the framing device for fairy tales you wanted to tell.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was really surprised at how well I took to the framing device story, because I'd never written a work of fiction before. Like, I'd never written fan fiction. I'd never really done any of that. So I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to do this. I need to figure out how to write a comic because I've just sold this book, right? You've read The Magic Fish, and you'll see, actually, if you read it back, that it's actually structured like the only thing that I knew how to write at the time, which was an essay. It starts with a thesis statement, and there are 3 supporting arguments, and then I reiterate reiterate the thesis again at the end with a twist. So the magic fish is actually an essay.
Probably why I liked it. I used to teach English, so that's why it appealed to me so much.
Yeah.
You've got full marks.
Oh
That's
my gosh.
basically a 3-act structure. So
I mean, yeah, it's
That's
also
kinda
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, look, I one of my favorite publishing stories is Michael Chabon talking about the Mysteries of Pittsburgh getting published,
Mhm.
and he was like, I had done 2 half novels in college writing. I was in this program. I was graduating, and I thought, I guess you write a novel now. I've got a degree in I guess you write a novel. And I thought, what kind of novel
Mhm.
do I know? He said, literally, what novel? I know The Great Gatsby so good. I learned that so good. Let's just do The Great Gatsby. And
Mhm.
I just had my first boyfriend. So let's just get rid of that Gatsby subtext between Nick and Gatsby and make that the story. There's a Gatsby.
Yeah.
And then he goes, and that's the Mystery of Pittsburgh. And I'm sitting there reading this in an essay after having read Mystery of Pittsburgh 2 or 3 times going, you son of because that's all it is. It's just a much gayer Gatsby that takes place in like it's all it is. And that's great what you're saying, because I think you can take a structure, you can take a story, and you can make it your own. On that note, the framing sequence then, is that like true life?
Yeah, it's pretty close to true life. I fictionalized it because at the time I started making the magic fish, like I pitched it in my late 20s. And so I was like, well, I'm not 30 yet. It feels really pretentious to do an autobiography. I haven't lived enough yet. There's not enough to tell. And so
32 is around
also,
around the age.
Sure. Right. I can do an autobiography now. But at the time I thought, well, I also don't want to, like, if I'm telling an autobiography, I'm also kind of telling other people's stories as well, right? And if I want to be responsible, I have to have some sort of like journalistic rigor about it. And I did not have the capacity to do that at the time. I was like, I want to make funny books for children, and I want to tell fairy tales in comic form. So this is not exactly the project that I signed on for. So I took a lot of creative license with my own life, but a lot of those beats did kind of come from my life.
It's incredible because, you know, the second book, this one, Angelica, is so, and I mean this as a huge Alexis Hall fan, I mean this in the nicest way. It is so rom-com at its core. You know, she's trying to have it all after she burnt out. There's this weird little relationship. It's like she's got mail. She's got this weird little relationship online. It's very heavy into that. And now thinking about the structure of the first one, is the structure of this also like lifted from something you wanted to? Because clearly the fairy tale at the core of it.
Yeah, no, but you nailed it. It's lifted directly from a lot of the rom-coms that I enjoyed growing up and kind of like and watching. Like I watched a lot of rom-coms when I was kind of growing up because they were the easiest way. They're all comedies of manners, right? They're the easiest way to figure out and like help me reverse engineer an understanding of American culture, right? I would watch a lot of sitcoms and I would watch a lot of rom-coms. And like those stories kind of always, I'm like, okay, so these are these people's values and this is the stuff that they seem to desire and these are the issues that they run into. And I grew up where my parents are war refugees, right? I was born in a refugee camp. So every time I had a problem, I felt really shy about coming to my parents about it because I'm like, well, you've lived through a humanitarian crisis and like a live volcano. So I feel like I can't really talk to you about these things. But it also kind of gave me this notion that, you know, your problems are your problems. So if they're petty, they're still a problem. You're going to experience them emotionally as a human being. And so I really latched onto those. I was like, finally, a problem that's small and that isn't going to alter my entire life in like this horrifying way. And so I enjoyed rom-coms for that reason. And
Are you more of
Angelica
a
and the Bear
Nancy
Prince,
Myers man or a Gary Marshall man?
I think I'm actually more of a Nora Ephron dude.
Nora Ephron.
Okay, all right.
There we go, Joey. That is the correct
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah, always the secret third option. Well, she's not so much a secret. People like her work.
Oh my
But yeah,
God.
no, Angelica and the Bear Prince is basically a pastiche of You've Got Mail, which has gone through a lot of iterations. Like it started as a stage production, Shop Around the Corner.
Right.
No, it was Perfumery, and then it was made into Shop Around the Corner, and then there was In the Good Old Summertime with Judy Garland.
Was it a short story
What's that?
first? I feel like Shop Around the Corner was actually a short story first.
I think it was a stage production. Like it was a play first. Yeah.
And,
Great Christmas
you know,
movie too.
You've Got Mail is also, which is I think the added kiss on it is that it's also the reunion of the Sleepless in Seattle.
Yes,
I
for
think
sure.
that also, since it's a remake and then it's also a sequel, I think that it really gives it this special touch where everyone And I just discovered, this is totally off the record, and if we take it off the video, I apologize to nerds like me, but I just learned that Parker Posey had a whole part in Sleepless in Seattle where she is a houseboat neighbor.
Wow.
And Nora felt so bad about cutting it that's why she's the character she is in You've Got Mail, because she owed
That's
Parker
really
Posey.
cool.
Really,
She's
the
just
Barbara Loden in The Swimmer of her time, I guess. Right?
Yeah.
That too deep
awesome.
a reference?
I love that.
Yeah, and first I'm like, Parker Posey, like, whew, don't get me started. We will be here all day. But specifically, Sleepless in Seattle, Nora Ephron's idea that your unhealthy romantic attachment could actually save you is like this really modern magic. You know, it comes very heavy, like you said, Chop Around the Corner. It comes from the black and white romances with this swelling orchestra and the, dramatic lighting where everything works out in the end, where one of the gayest short stories ever written, Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is literally about gay men worshiping a working girl, becomes a romance. Like that is literally what Nora Ephron's taking and flipping. And you're saying, and then that becomes our modern romance graphic novel.
Yeah.
Great pedigree.
Yeah, no, that about sums it up. And you know what? I love that you're asking me about a lot of these kind of different multimedia influences on my storytelling, because whenever I do book events, people have a very narrow focus about like, oh, like what are the books that have influenced you? And I have read a lot, but I kind of get a lot of narrative influence from a lot of other places too. So I always appreciate when people bring up movies or they bring up, funnies or comics or anything like that.
And so that leads to the next thing. Stage production in this is a big part of Angelica. It's a lot of stage. Is that personal, or is that also researched or something you want to
It's a little bit personal. I was a stage manager in high school. I loved it. It was great. I was I wasn't a huge theater kid when I was in high school. I liked performing and I'm a decent performer. But I found out very quickly that I don't like to work with others, which is evident in my comics making, because I tend to like to, I like to do everything. And so I joined the speech team instead because it was just all me. But I was still really attracted to, like live theater. And so I wondered like, well, what is one way that I can contribute or participate in this way or in this space? And being a stage manager was it. And so I liked kind of being behind the scenes. And I also liked the notion in Angelica and the Bear Prince of the main character not being the star of the show that's in the story. Like, I think there was a temptation at the very beginning to be like, oh, and she's going to be the lead actress in this thing. And I was like, well, yeah, but that doesn't really feel true to me. And that doesn't really feel true to this character who's a bit of a gremlin. So we're going to shift things around a little bit.
Not to say it's borrowed from, but when we're talking about this genre, the name's going to come up. I already said it once, Raina Telgemeier, right? Drama's beauty is that it's happening behind the scenes to the people watching the performance. From behind the scenes. James Tynion had a series called Backstagers, which failed as a single issue comic, but was very successful as graphic novels and eventually novels. And it was like many things in comics, it was optioned for a show. It's a magical backstage and a giant queer cast that has romances as they get magical props from the interdimensional prop room. It shockingly didn't get made.
I wonder what considerations go into that. I mean, like, I'm sure it's just, some coked up person in a boardroom just being like, what appeals to me at the moment? But it does seem to be something that has a lot of appeal right now. So I don't know. Like, I have a narrow set of interests. So maybe I'm not the best judge of what will be popular, and but that is something that I find really appealing. So I'm like, why wouldn't you make this?
I'll tell you, there's so many things in I see comics made into movies all the time. And there's so many things that you're like, oh, this would be so interesting. This would be so fascinating. And then you get 100 Nights of Hero. I don't know if you know 100 Nights of Hero. It's Isabel Greenberg's graphic novel. It's super surreal, minimalist. The clothing looks almost Magnolia-esque design with a touch of Mobius. And they made the movie, and they just costumed the people kind of like that, like Luc Besson film, like just they're in weird out, and it's like, no, that's their hair. Nope, it's a weird hat. No, Their shoulder blades are actually this big, and it's just them walking around talking.
Mhm.
And the plot is the plot of the book, and I'm like, this is what gets the like. It's a beautiful book. But like
Mhm.
that gets the absolutely word for word remake on the screen, and then you have Wuthering Heights and Frankenstein, which are like, well, no, they're our vision. You're saying you come from a multimedia place. Do you feel that when you sit down and make a comic, you're creating your vision, or you're trying to translate an idea that you have in just the best way you can in the current form?
That's an interesting question. Now, I am fascinated with the notion of adaptation. Like, I find it really interesting when a story leaves one medium and walks into another one and comes out being exactly what it is. And I don't know that that is the type of storyteller that I am. Like, I'm someone who really, really likes the comic book form, right? I'm not usually like, even though I have a lot of different converging interests, the thing that I'm most focused on is the comic book, is the comic book page, because that's the thing that I'm obsessed with. And so every story, every consideration that I kind of think of narratively is in the service of making a comic book. I have no aspirations of getting my work adapted because I like the medium that I work in, you know? I don't really think that way when I'm making comics.
You know, Joey, I keep wanting to have these guests on and grill them, and then they say things that make me like fall in love with them. This is like that's the perfect answer you could. The comic me, this
That would
is
have been
one of-
really awkward if you're like, nope, I just make them just to get money checks,
Yeah.
and I
If
really
you were
don't.
like-
That would have been the
right? No, I tell people I have trouble watching film now because it'd just be better as a comic book. I mean, obviously, some of it's the whole attention thing that we've all got from being on our phones too much. The big example I give, and this is one of my favorite examples, and Joey's probably going to cut this because it's not about you, but Action Comics #1 cover. The idea, what you're seeing in this simplistic, because it's a very simple drawing, but the weight of the car is downward, but Superman has no trouble with it. This is a 10-ton thing. He's like skipping almost to put it
that's a
down. You got the guy,
1930s car too, so you know that actually is heavy.
yeah,
Not like
you
a
got
car
a guy
now.
doing the scream right in the front. He's
Yeah.
his mind. And this is happening. You look at Bishop, this is happening. And then you go and see James Gunn's $50 million movie. And the second he does that, you're like, right, your brain just going, right, but the special effects. Like,
I think it was actually
you're
a
seeing a
$200
movie.
million movie, but yeah,
Right, how much?
Yeah.
200 plus.
Okay, whatever. Doesn't once you hit $1 million, I lose track of what that even means. My point is, our brains have filters in them that are challenged frequently, but they tell you, oh, that's not actually real. But when you read the comic, it's happening. It's time and space are distorted. They're doing whatever the artist wants to tell you in the story. And it is just so much stronger than, and Joey hates when I say this because he's a film buff, but it is so much stronger than film. It is so much more direct. When you want to tell me Angelica's absolutely layered feelings about being happy with this imagined relationship while also coming to realize that it's very out of bounds and probably not real, you know, and again, we just talked about this. Love me some Nora Ephron, but you know, she's better than Meg Ryan. You know, Meg Ryan is maybe one of the greatest to ever do it. But you're just the language and the acting, but also how the page is structured, where the panels are. This is it. And for you to go and say, yeah, you know, that's what I think in comics. It's like, well, yeah, damn right. You do.
Yeah. No, it's just the thing that I focus on. Although, you know what? I do have a little bit of a hot take about the way that people consume media. And I think that it's literally just that we have to imagine different things when we're consuming different media. So it's not that we do less work when we're working with film, right? The thing about books that I find to be really fascinating and that I love about the book form in general is that it requires constant permission, right? Like you can set it down at any time. If you're not ready for it, you can pick it back up later. You control when that happens. But if you want a viewing of a film, you kind of have to take it all in at the same time. And so a lot of that imagination, a lot of that, you know, reflection happens after, and then it happens upon rewatching. So you kind of develop a context for what it is that's in front of you, right? And so, like people say the same thing about comics where they're like, oh, like it's not like reading, like a prose book because the pictures are all there. You're not imagining things, but that's not true. You are imagining smells, you're imagining the feelings, like you are getting everything that you're getting out of a text. And film is kind of similar, but its relationship to time is super different. And it's not a medium that I'm super familiar with, but we're not doing no work when we're watching movies, right? I like old movies where I have to do like a lot more suspension of disbelief. Like I love a movie with a really fake looking rock. Like I love fake rocks. And like
don't get me.
clearly someone made and painted this. And for some reason, just like having to do that little extra bit of work, I feel more invested in the thing that's in front of me. And that's kind of how I feel about comics. You have to do a bit more legwork. And it's the same with prose books, but it's just, a slightly different thing. We're just doing more legwork, investing a little bit more of our imagination into the thing that's in front of us. And so it feels definitely like, oh, this is the thing where we kind of get all of this nuance. And a lot of that is literally just the reader bringing their experiences to the book, right? Like a lot of times, like I'm telling whatever story that I think is important at the time, and I'm having a fun time, and I like I might happen upon something that I don't intend to bring to the book, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's really great. I want to put this in intentionally. Someone else will read the book
afterward in a
okay.
second.
All right. Sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because you bring it up in the back of this book, and I literally said, I'm interrupting. I apologize, but I literally said after that, I said, if not for the afterword in this book, it would leave such a weird taste in the mouth. Because, like we said, this is a Nora Ephron comic. It's so like, but then it just throws like a Richard Curtis left field, just heaviness. It just suddenly goes, oh, these little side characters, their stuff's a lot more serious. Like we're not, Laura Dean keeps breaking up with me level of like subplots getting
yeah.
We're not going there, but it just a weight. First off, you start with the main character in your teen book. You start with your main character basically coming out of a massive depression. We're in the lightning phase, right? We're growing. Things are getting better. And then you're like, oh, this person? Their story's not good. This person? Their story's not good. And there's just this weight there. And then you're like, boom, grief. Everyone is dealing with grief. Everyone is absolutely out of their mind, horrified by the mortality of their life and the legacy they leave behind. And if you don't get it right, who's even going to remember you? Oh, look, romance. How do you balance that? How do you get?
How do I balance those things?
Yeah, because
I was really kind of clumsily feeling my way through this thing, right? Yeah, no, it's a lot of things, and it really like the grief stuff totally surprised me because I was like, I really truly was intending on telling something that was kind of like that was really frothy, right? Like I needed a break from something that was really heavy. I think the thing that I've been thinking a lot about recently, and my books are marketed as young adult books. And so I end up, in a lot of rooms and a lot of panels with young adult authors, and they have a very different relationship to stories. Like they pitch their stories like they're writing tabloids about their original characters, right? And they're like, oh, like this juicy thing is happening, or, like this thing is happening and there's this huge twist and it's very exciting. And I don't think about stories quite that way. Like I kind of have a very, like a reserved sort of slice of life way of looking at things. And so I think I kind of like on the surface, a lot of my characters' story arcs are very sedate. And I think that kind of reflects the way that I kind of, like it's the way that you kind of grow up. Like when you don't really know the depth of someone else's experiences until you kind of look back at it as an adult in context and you're like, oh, like you needed this at the time, like when I was a teenager and you were a teenager and we didn't know how to support each other through that, right? And so I kind of wanted to give the reader the experience of like, oh, these problems aren't really that big a deal. And then you get the opportunity to spend more time with the characters and you kind of get a sense for the depth of those things. And I kind of find that I don't need a twist and I don't need a dramatic, like soap operatic thing to happen for the characters to be interesting, because real life is oftentimes enough, like heavy enough. So that's kind of the way, like I didn't really think that hard about like, oh, like how do I balance these things? It was just like, well, this is honestly the thing that kind of moves me in my day to day, is that I'm really interested in what people's days are like, because, you know, it might not seem like such a huge deal in the moment, but kind of taken within the context of their life. Like Angelica is talking about her relationship to grief in terms of percentages. Like, what percentage of my life is it appropriate for me to move on from feeling sad about this? And did I move on too early? And am I a bad person for it? And we don't, you know, like we don't always talk about, you know, the scope of life and grief that way exactly, but that is a feeling that we get oftentimes. And I kind of wanted to let young readers figure that out from this book.
It's very interesting you said, you bring this up twice about the depth of people's problems being more complex than people always realize, or like you
Mhm.
said, comparing your parents' experience to. Do you feel that part of that may come from your status in America, second generation refugee, looking at the world from an outsider perspective? Is that making you go, I need to exercise my empathy times 1,000? Is it forcing you to do that in a different way? Is it completely unrelated?
Yeah, no, it definitely did. Like it was definitely something that I had to think about really intentionally, like the whole time when I was growing up. Mostly because, like, you know, like I spent a lot of time with my parents, kind of like I learned English alongside them. But what that also meant was that I was picking up on social cues that they weren't picking up on. And so I was really sensitive to like, oh, like these are the priorities of the people around me. And I don't think that my parents are on that same wavelength. And so I'm like, as a child, I'm like trying to usher them into like, okay, like this is what they expect of you. And so it's a lot of pressure. And so I've always kind of like been interested in why people care about the things that they care about. And so there's never, you know, like I'm not inclined to be like, well, I don't understand why this matters to you, right? Like if something matters to someone, I'm like, okay, I might not understand it, but I am interested to know why. And I think that that sort of, yeah, like I had never really considered that, you know, like empathy. I had a very, like it felt, and maybe this is just sort of the person that I am too, because like I'm actually someone who's not super comfortable with emotions, like big displays of emotion. And so if I'm having a big feeling, I like to intellectualize it so that I can feel like, oh, like I'm holding it in my hand, I can turn it over, like I feel in control. And I kind of do that when it comes to empathizing with people too, because it feels so huge if I fail to understand why they care about a thing. Emotionally, I feel like I failed. So if I think about it as, you know, like I'm intellectualizing it, I'm investigating this cerebrally, I feel less like I'm making a huge mistake that will hurt someone, right? And so I've always kind of approached things that way, kind of clinically. And I'm just, you know, like now that I'm telling a lot more of these stories, I'm like, okay, I actually have to get comfortable having big feelings and knowing what that's like. And so the way that I framed it when I was younger and trying to figure out what people care about, definitely wasn't something that I thought came from a place of empathy. But in practice, in my adulthood, I have to admit that it is. It's something like I do care about figuring out what other people care about. That was a very long answer.
No, it was great, and I think it led to the next thing that I wasn't positive I was going to bring up, but you talking about the big feelings and the big moments, and the, you know, recently with the comics for Liam stuff and everything going on in Minnesota, you've been doing some very personal. Like the last time you did this many in a row personal comics, it was your grandma and you going to Vietnam. Like like it
We're going
was
to Italy.
it was legacy. It had a lightness to it, and now it's, again, the world had a lightness to it that we don't have as
Mhm.
much. But like, how do you balance that? Like, these are not graphic novels you get to sit down and process and go back and edit and work over, and they're big emotions. They're very
Mhm.
powerful things. How's the approach to that different? Is it any different?
I mean, yeah, it's super different because it's not something that, like, they're not stories that I'm crafting. They're sort of like I'm documenting the things that are happening to me. I'm pretty flip on the internet and I'm pretty comfortable having like a cartoon persona, but I don't love divulging too much about what I'm actually going through, what I'm actually feeling. And this time it felt actually kind of important for me to do that. And I kind of felt compelled alongside with a lot of other local cartoonists to use it as a form of documentation and also as a form of expression about the things that we were feeling while this extraordinary and terrible thing was happening in our neighborhood. So it didn't feel like a thing that I like. It didn't feel like I was telling stories the way that I'm comfortable telling stories. It kind of felt like, oh, like this is confessional explicitly. This is something different. So it kind of feels like, so I don't have a lot of the same considerations for that kind of storytelling.
I grew up wearing this on my head everywhere I went. It's a huge part of that is being aware of being the other, is being seen as out,
Hmm.
being not part of the culture. But I can put a hat on. I can hide it a lot more easily than anyone of any other race in this country. And right now, being any other race in this country, but Ashkenazi white, you know, I'm, you
Hmm.
know,
Like I think the clarity of it is something that I grow to appreciate more as I get older, because I think a lot of the trouble of, like being an outsider, kind of being an other, is kind of navigating that space. Like, oh, like, is this like, are they gonna like, do they advocate for something that is dangerous to me? Like, like what is this here? And then you have to do this whole song and dance about like, okay, like how do we tease this out of them
right.
somehow?
How
And
do
so
we,
now people are
and
just
it's
being very
so
frank
different.
about it.
Right. It's
Hmm.
so different also, again, like, I put my hat on and I can have these conversations, but my friend Alan once talked about, Long Island not being friendly to black people. And I said, well, give me an example. And he goes, my whole life. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, just walk into a diner, period. Like, he's like, it's like, I can't explain it. There's a level that you have to trust me here on what you accept as normal, the amount of work I have to do to get there. And it was like just the way he said it, just walk into his, again, I'm kosher. I haven't walked into a diner in Long Island since I was a little kid to get a soda, So but like I know the vibe. I know what my customers have
That's
about going in
just
the diner.
Menachem's Greek prejudice.
Yeah. I'm just, I'm just saying I know the comfort and ease in which most of my customers, well, not most, but with many of my customers can get with this. And it's a
Mhm.
huge thing. I talk to people all the time about people who wear super bright clothing or dye their hair or all these things. And people are always like, what do they gain out of it? And I said, well, partly it's allegiance. They're making a
Mhm.
stand right there. And they're going, my hair is pink. That says something to you. Deal with it. And I'm done, and there's other people wearing, I had a guy who shouldn't get into this. I had a guy whose father-in-law, my father-in-law's
Mhm.
coming with me to the comic store. It's a guy I know from college. Before college, I knew him. He was a friend of my brother. I knew him in college. He wears a MAGA hat. This is 2015.
Mm.
He wears a MAGA hat to get conversation started.
Okay. Yeah.
He says, and I was like, well, I will probably not give him a lot of my attention.
Mhm.
And he said, excuse me? And I said, if someone comes into my store with an inflammatory bit of rhetoric, this is 2015. It was an inflammatory bit of rhetoric. It wasn't where it is now.
Mhm.
I'll be polite to him. I'm going to ask him if he wants anything, but like, I'm not going to engage because he
Mhm.
clearly wants a fight.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, he doesn't want to fight. He just thinks people's reactions to that is interesting. And he really wants to engage with them about it.
Mm. Yeah. No, I think that already feels suspicious to me simply because I don't love when people reduce people's experiences to rhetoric, like a lot of like even people on the left are oftentimes like we have conversations about oppression and we kind of like forget about how to take care of the people in front of us, like
Right.
what is
Well,
the problem in front of us,
yeah.
because we like there's this temptation to talk about oppression like Pokemon, like, oh, like this is good against this. It feels like someone's playing a card game as opposed to like being really interested in the person in front of them.
Right.
And so the notion that, like, oh, like your reaction to this inflammatory bit of rhetoric is interesting to me
Right. Right.
already kind of puts you in a position where you're like, oh, like this is not something that I'm invested in.
Yeah,
This is
I'm
simply an
done.
experience that I would
Conversation's
like to
over.
observe. Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely correct. And I think that it's a huge aspect of what we look for in the comics we push and we sell is
Hmm.
this thought of who, to steal from Michael Shore because he's so great, what we owe each other, right? Which is actually a real
Hmm.
book. But like to go back to that point of the people in front of you and the people you can actually help and do things for rather than the people you can, pwn on the internet for not getting this great fact about comics, democracy,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Not knowing stuff is normal. Not knowing stuff is totally
Well,
normal.
the internet has destroyed that, right?
Yeah.
To someone about an Eisner. I said, oh, that won the Eisner in like 2020. And they're like, 2018, maybe it came out in 2017. And I'm like, oh, I don't care. I want an Eisner. You're not negating my point.
Yeah.
The best is
I
when
kinda
you're off
feel
by
like
like
that-
15 or 20 years. Those are
Okay,
my
it's
favorite
different.
ones.
That's different. When
Yeah.
the Vampirella video you just edited, where I said Harris went out of business in 1998, and you're like 2010. That's fair. That's a fair cop.
Yeah.
Sean, thank you so much for doing this. I hope the questions were interesting and it was fun.
Yeah, no, this was a great chat.
Yeah, no, I think Jim, you're both really, you got to the passionate stuff about art. Comics as a corporate entity can get some of the best people to make the most amazing stuff, but comics as a medium offers the range of everything. You know, you don't only get a comic when you need your Mad Max Fury Road. You get it when you need your Nora Ephron, and you get it when you need your Pedro Almodovar. We have it all. We've got Love and Rockets. We've got Angelica and the Bear Prince. We've got Absolute Batman. We've got all those things, you know. And I think the thing that makes comics is the passion of the creators. And I thank you so much for joining us and sharing that with us, because I think listening to you talk about your books, and I unabashedly am a huge fan of your books, but listening to you talk about your books.
Oh, thank you.
Well, again, once someone starts talking about thinking in comic form, I'm a sucker, and you got me. So
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, we are all huge nerds about this medium, so you're gonna have a lot of fun conversations with people about it. We love talking about this stuff.
All right. Well, yeah, thanks a lot. And Joey, thank you for joining us and keeping me in check and all the editing that will eventually be here at the end of the video. Hopefully when it does, the stuff will still be topical. All right, Joe, we good?
We're good.
All right.